Hello, my name is Russell Myers. Welcome to Issues Unite. So, a lot of people are freaking out that Russia is saying that they are going to place nuclear weapons, at least one nuclear weapon, in. Hold it. I just lost my train of thought. They are placing those weapons in Belarus, which is a strong ally of Russia. Russian troops and equipment are in Belarus right this moment. So I find it just really humorous that the European Union is now saying, well, that threatens European security. And that's interesting. I mean, they literally just quantified Putin's repeated statement for years that the expansion of NATO and placing nuclear weapons, tactical nuclear weapons, on Russia's doorstep, that's a threat to Russian security. And this is what they have been expressing for years. But so, our nuclear weapons on Russia's doorstep are apparently no threat to Russia, but if Russia places a nuclear weapon, even just one, in Belarus, all of a sudden that's a threat to European security. About that. Okay, so now you understand pretty well where Russia is coming from, talking about all the things that I just covered. Yes, and allowing Ukraine into NATO. Yes, that is a threat to Russian security. Now, Putin made this announcement, and they've made this decision based upon the UK stating that they are going to send depleted uranium rounds, artillery rounds, to Ukraine. Now, depleted uranium has been used by the United States and NATO in Iraq, and I believe in Syria, and in Serbia in the 1990s. And all of the places that depleted uranium has been used, the rate of cancer goes up by at least 10 times. Breast cancer, cervical cancer, prostate cancer, brain tumors, and these are exceptionally resistant to any form of treatment. You can't, if it's being caused by radioactive contamination, then radiation treatment probably isn't going to help. So these are weapons which should be banned by the international community. These should not be allowed to exist at all. But the contamination, and it causes birth defects. Lots of birth defects. If you want to know what these birth defects look like, then look it up. Look up depleted uranium and birth defects and look at the images. I'm not going to show them here. They are heartbreaking. These children that are born with these birth defects, they have absolutely, many of them have absolutely no chance at a normal life at all. And this contamination doesn't just happen during a conflict or in the area where these things are used. The depleted uranium contaminates the water and the soil. Now keep in mind that Ukraine and Russia are the leading global exporters of grain. Well, what happens when you get the soil contaminated, then anything that you grow is going to suck up that depleted uranium, and you can't even eat the food that is produced in that region. I've talked about it before, that this conflict is just completely wiping out the future of Ukraine, period. That they've lost most of their, reproductive age men, and they're recruiting teenagers. I mean, this is the absolute destruction of an entire nation, their future, and even their culture. If you don't have people that are continuing, with the birth rate, reproduction of the people in that region, then your culture just collapses. So what do you wind up doing? You wind up letting immigrants come in from other areas, which, that's fine. But those people come from other cultures, and they want to perpetuate their cultures, which can over time, overshadow the Ukrainian culture within Ukraine. I actually plan on writing an article and submitting it to antiwar.com regarding what is happening in that respect, the collapse of the Ukrainian culture. But the fact that, depleted uranium can cause cancers and birth defects, well, now you've reached into multiple generations that could be born in Ukraine, and people that live there for generation after generation. And by the way, that depleted uranium contamination, you think about it, if you till the soil, to plow the soil, then that depleted uranium on the surface also becomes airborne. If you are trying to remedy, mitigate the destruction of entire towns, cities, and that depleted uranium is contaminating the ruins, and you're trying to do something about it, again, it becomes airborne. The people that are doing the construction will also be exposed to this radiation, this contamination. So at this point, Putin had said, do not send those depleted uranium rounds to Ukraine. And when that fell on deaf ears, then he decided, okay, we are going to put nuclear weapons in Belarus, and not many of them. And he stated that these nuclear weapons will remain under the control of Russia. Think about the fact that Russia has never used a nuclear weapon. There's only one country that has ever used nuclear weapons. And it was not Russia. It was the United States. So this depleted uranium will first affect any combatants in the area, soldiers from Russia or Ukraine, even if they survive through the carnage that is happening over there. Then, 2 years from now, 5 years from now, these soldiers may wind up with brain tumors, prostate cancer, leukemia, lymphoma. They may give birth to children that are deformed, that have birth defects. So, anyway, this is something that should not be happening. Like I said, these weapons should be completely banned. And that's without even mentioning that, Ukraine is trying to convince the United States to send them cluster bombs. Cluster bombs are outlawed by over 100 countries. The United States no longer actively uses cluster bombs, but cluster bombs drop a whole bunch of small bomblets that stay in an area for years. But that's a different topic. But the use of these depleted uranium rounds, Putin could have responded in many different ways to this. He could have said, okay, if you're going to use these depleted uranium weapons, then we're going to do the same. They've got the knowledge, the technology. They could produce their own depleted uranium rounds. But instead, he is placing nuclear weapons in Belarus. And let's face it, Belarus is at risk of being invaded by Poland. There have been a lot of, let's say, unofficial statements from people that were former, government leaders in Poland that have talked about taking over part of Belarus, at least, and part of Ukraine. So Putin putting a nuclear weapon in Belarus that is largely a neutral act. There's nobody that's going to be killed or experiencing, no children going to have, children with birth defects if these weapons are not used. But the depleted uranium rounds are being sent to Ukraine with the absolute intent of using them. So you're destroying. So these rounds being used, they can make an entire region where they've been used uninhabitable for many years, unless people want to take the risk of cancer, their children with birth defects, etc. If Belarus is not attacked or invaded, then there's really no risk that they're going to use the nuclear weapons that are going to be placed there. And those weapons aren't there yet. They have to build the infrastructure to place these things in, So this is not a threat, but it is a response. It is a valid response. And the fact that the European Union is freaking out about a Russian nuclear weapon being closer to their borders is complete hypocrisy. And there is also the extreme danger that grain produced, grown in those areas gets exported to other countries. So now you're increasing the same risks for other countries that import that grain without knowing that it came from this area. How are you going to prevent that? You probably can't. So this is just, maybe somebody should try sitting down and talking at a negotiation table and just stop all of this risk, engage in diplomacy, and stop all of this. Listen, try using the Chinese proposal for peace in Ukraine, which includes one of the third point that they raise is a bilateral ceasefire. But, John Kirby said that a ceasefire is unacceptable. Since when is John Kirby the president of Ukraine? How does he get to make that determination? The fact is that Zelensky is not in control. He is not actually running Ukraine at all. The West, especially the United States, is running Ukraine. They are telling Zelensky what to do. So anyway, share this video. Talk about these subjects. If you can afford it, please donate whatever you can to help expand this channel and my presidential campaign, and I will catch you in the next one. Thank you for watching. Hope you have a good day.